Hey, Husker fans, and welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is my co-host Danny Gillette, and we're back for another episode of the podcast here on Wednesday. We got Troy Dannen introduced himself to Husker Nation officially on Tuesday, so have some thoughts on that. There's some transfer portal happenings, recruiting, and of course spring ball. So we'll touch on all that stuff. Before we do, please hit the like button on this video, get into the comments section, and hit the subscribe button to the channel if you haven't already. It definitely helps us out, helps more of our hardcore Husker fans out there see our content. And Danny, how you doing this morning, man?
Good. I'm a little sleepy, but it's never a bad day or morning to talk Nebraska athletics. And as always, there's a lot of news to cover, and we just had a show on Monday, so it's just never a dull moment around here, which is good and bad. Ebbs
Yeah,
and
man, we
flows.
got spring spring football. We got the transfer portals humming on the Nebraska side of things. Troy Dannen, getting introduced. Football team, hitting the practice field. So that's been kind of fun. Not that there hasn't been a ton of rumblings. Of course, I haven't been on the Twitter as much as I usually am, or X, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. But
I have no life, and I'm on there all the time, and there hasn't been a lot of rumblings.
yeah, I
So
mean, I have been checking it, but
Thursday, I think probably when they get media access for the first time, we'll see some more rumblings, or hear some more rumblings rather.
yeah, like what? It'd be nice if the insiders had some, pay for these message boards, man, and get nothing. Like, what's going on here? I should have at least some practice intel. Although, I mean, they haven't even. Although they have like partial pads, so no, not full pads, I guess, up to this point. So you can only learn so much, when you have like, just partial. You're not fully padded up, I guess I would say.
And the social media team is conveniently leaving Dylan Raiola out of a lot of these videos that they're showing. So maybe they're keeping the Ferrari in the garage until the spring game.
They did. I mean, they did the first day. They had that one where it was like 8 videos at once, and
Yeah.
you had to follow it really closely. I posted it on HuskerBigRed.com, but if you watch his little video and just stay on that screen, you'll watch him complete about a 50-yard pass, like one of the most beautiful rainbows you've ever seen in your life. I'm not sure who caught it. I couldn't tell the number of who caught it, but
I haven't seen anything else. Have you from him? Like
no.
Raiola specifically? No.
No, they did show a Heinrich Harburg, pass yesterday, which I saw, and I did see some videos, or pictures, excuse me. Dante Dowdell was looking jacked. I mean, that dude looks like
Yeah.
an absolute stud. So I want to see him run. I think I saw maybe a video of him run the ball too. It's hard to see their numbers sometimes, and I feel like they maybe do that on purpose to kind of, it's not like they give you a clear. Sometimes you have to like kind of freeze frame it to see the number, and then I still can't see the number because when you're like your jerseys that mesh, and so it's like I'm like, is that a 2 or a 3? And but at any rate, it was fun to see some guys. I saw Thomas Fedoni making a
Yeah, I was just
catch,
gonna say. Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, not a lot of like rumblings or anything yet, but yeah, Thursday's going to be Thursday's going to be the press, the press thing. Yeah, I mean, I thought Harburg's pass looked a little bit better, but yeah, a little wobble to it, But I mean,
Well, there's certain camera angles that you can have that makes it look better. I used to watch. Well, I saw videos of the Miami Dolphins social media team making it look like Tua Tagovailoa could throw 80 yards on it with an absolute dart like Patrick Mahomes, and we all know that's not the case. So, I mean, these social media teams are pretty good, and but in any event, it was just good to see a lot of the guys out on the field. Like you said, Fedoni, I thought he looked, from the picture, he looked, jacked and healthy. And as you alluded to on Monday, he could be in line for a big year.
yeah, I really, I've been kind of been pounding the table for him for a long time, but I really liked how he played at the end of last season, and I think just man, if you get a really good quarterback, it really makes a difference, especially for a tight end, and a tight end can be a quarterback's best friend too. So I think that having him and Carter Nelson, I mean, I really hope that they embrace that positionless offense type thing that they've been talking about, because even going back to that Polynesian Bowl, like some of the flare screens, some of the quick screens, just getting the football into Carter Nelson's hand, like he doesn't have to learn how to run all these routes. Just throw him a 1-yard pass and see what the guy can do. Like Nebraska's starting to have those kind of athletes on offense, and that's pretty exciting because it's been a while since we've had someone like that. I mean, maybe even like Wandale Robinson back in the day, and of course we never didn't give him the ball the right way either, so he left.
Right, and conveniently he went pro after Kentucky. Who could have seen that? No, but anyway, it's kind of interesting that you mentioned just give Carter Nelson the ball, let him go to work. And I'm not comparing him by any means, but I kind of remember seeing Rob Gronkowski, Brady would just dump the ball off and then just let him be an absolute beast, dragging 4 or 5 defenders. So sometimes all you have to do with these playmakers is just give them the ball and see what they can do. And it's not sexy, clean football with pristine routes and impeccable timing. It's just, meatheads, running down the field, dragging defenders and doing what they do best. And I'm excited to see what Nelson does, and I think him and Fedoni could be a very dangerous combo.
Yeah, and I feel like people are going to underestimate, his speed in terms of who they're going to try to, cover with him. And I also feel like Nebraska, their receivers, they block. I mean, that's something that they, really emphasize. And it's just gonna be interesting to see how they kind of use all those different pieces. But yeah, I'm super excited to see Carter Nelson getting on campus. Of course, that won't be until
Yeah.
this summer. He's finishing up there, but a lot of excitement though. It'll be fun to see what Matt Rule and all these guys say on Thursday. But as far as spring football talk, that's pretty much all that we got. We don't have a ton of inside information, but there will be some more stuff coming soon. I have to think, in terms of what's going on. But the best way to judge is with our own eyes, which we'll get, next month at Lincoln Memorial Stadium. April 27th, right?
Yep.
And I wonder, I just saw that Ohio State and Michigan are having their games broadcast on Fox. I'm wondering where the Nebraska spring game is. Have they said, is it going to be on the Big Ten network or?
I'm gonna have to look that up. I don't know off the top of my head, but one thing I did, I'm just looking at my calendar here really quickly. One thing that is kind of note is that there's something with the transfer portal on April 15th, I believe. That's the first wave, actually, of players that can enter the transfer portal following spring. So I'm wondering if there's any movement. I kind of don't like having the spring game as late as it is, almost towards May even. But I'll be interested to see if maybe they bring anybody in or anybody leaves prior to the spring game, and that kind of evens things out.
Yeah, and so that's going to be the spring transfer portal window. I think is April 15th to April 30th. So that's the second time frame where guys are, able to enter the portal. You've seen a couple have already said that they're going to enter the portal. I mean, Caden Proctor, I guess, would be the best example because the transfer portal is actually not open right now. So he has to wait until April 15th to make that move official. Like if Emmett Johnson, I know, has been a guy that's been talked about. Like if he's going to make a move, that would be then. If there's a position Nebraska wants to add, potentially they could look at that. But I feel like they're pretty solid. I mean, unless there's like an injury, I mean, you never want to say no if a big time talent, comes available and he could help your team. But I'm just thinking, I mean, cornerback, maybe if there was like a true like shutdown corner. But I mean, I think Nebraska on the depth chart, I feel pretty good on both sides of the ball, really.
Yeah, this is some of the most depth that we've had in years on both sides of the ball, and I'm very interested to see how the running back room shakes out. Just due to, and we talked a little bit about this on Monday, but it's worth repeating. Just due to the injuries of Johnson and Irvin as it relates to spring practice, and then Emmett Johnson, as you kind of alluded to earlier, potentially moving. So I'm wondering if a big time running back or another running back wants to come to Nebraska to replace Johnson should he go, if that's a possibility. Covering the Miami Hurricanes like I do for another website as well. They have a loaded running back room, and Henry Parrish has already entered the portal. So I'm not saying that he's going to come to Nebraska by any means, but I do think there will be a bunch of backs available by the time the spring transfer portal window officially opens.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I know like Hayes Fawcett, who you're a big fan of, Danny, but
Oh
I
yeah,
know
love him.
he tweeted, he always plays it up a little bit more than it's going to be. But like he tweets
Right.
out that, I mean, and it's like Joe Rogan, doing that thing where he's like, oh,
Yeah.
like all shocked, and then it's like some and then it ends up never being. I just don't think the hype ever reaches what he says it's going to be. Like I'm going to be shocked, and then it's like it's like Will Howard entering the transfer portal. Like, yeah, no crap, Will Howard left because Avery Johnson's better. Kansas State told him he's not going to start anymore. Like, I mean, so but
It's all about
anyways,
the engagement and the clicks. You know that. Come on
yeah.
now.
Well, there's some that are really good at the engagement farming. They know how to make people mad. But at any rate,
Not us. So if anybody watches this and has any tips for engagement farming, leave it in the comments and we'll take note.
He did say it was going to be, like wild. I don't know. It's one of those adjectives. So, I mean, there'll
Wild.
probably be like 2 or 3 good players that actually go into the transfer portal. And maybe he was talking about Caden Proctor. And there's been some rumors about, Quinshawn Judkins, the guy that went to Ohio
Yep.
State, the running back. But I think people, what happened with the Caden Proctor thing is now all these fan bases think that like that's going to happen again. That like Ohio, like Caleb Downs is going to go back to Alabama from Ohio State. It's like that's not. I mean, yeah, it could happen, but I don't see. I just don't see like guys leaving out of the portal. But I mean, maybe they will. Who knows? But I think that's more of a one-time deal.
And can I say something on that? I don't care if you're a Nebraska fan, Iowa fan, whatever. Don't tweet a recruit's mom and tell her that, her son is a complete failure because he left your team. Like, give me a break.
Yeah, they went they went totally nuts, man. Like, get a
Well, I
life.
do know I'm not gonna name him on this show here, but tweeting at Malachi Coleman's mom back in the day too. It's like, what are we doing, guys? Like,
Yeah,
these are people's families, and just at the end of the day, we're just rooting for a bunch of college kids who I was a college kid once, can't make decisions to save their lives and have difficult decisions to make. And it's just don't tweet at recruits unless it's something positive. And even then, maybe don't do that as much too. I don't know.
yeah. No, nothing good's gonna come out. I mean, for one, you just look like a complete jerk. I mean, it's like the people who go after like the NFL players that miss the field goal and stuff. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you don't think that guy feels, you don't think the Bills guy, felt absolutely horrible about himself, after he missed the game. He doesn't need you threatening his life over a football game. It's like, I understand maybe you lost a lot of money or something because you bet on it, or I mean, I get it. Like, I'm a hardcore fan. I'm a total psychopath, but I've never threatened anybody's life. I can say that for sure. Like there are limits. Like, just, I mean, you have to, I just don't understand like what drives people to, to feel that way. Like, I do get upset at players, but then
Yeah.
them like, yeah, that it's not like that guy wanted to fail. I mean, have you ever been in a position, just talking in generally, where you were like, yep, I'm gonna mess up on purpose. I'm gonna suck at my job today. It's nobody does that, especially when you've got your entire career on the line, and so anyway, kind of off on a tangent there, but some people
I
just
think
need
it's
to.
a worthwhile tangent. Yeah.
Sometimes people just need to smell some fresh air, man. Feel some feel some grass under your feet.
I know it's like you're probably in your mom's basement eating like hot pockets and like not showering for 5 days, and you're over here yelling at a accomplished athlete because he decided to leave your team. It's just come on, man. I
Yeah,
don't know.
come on, man. Who wants to play for Kirk Ferentz anyway? So, I mean, should you be shocked, Iowa fans? I mean, a good offensive player doesn't want to play at Iowa. I'm just
No,
kidding, but you know what I'm
well,
saying.
unless it's a tight end, but I think even
Yeah,
then
unless
we might. I'm not going to say we're tight end you, but I think we're going to have a lot of talent coming in at the position in the coming years.
we're getting, especially if we can get Chase Lofton in this class, which might not be easy, but it wasn't easy to get Malachi or Carter Nelson, and we got them. So but Chase Lofton and Christian Jones, just like buckle up, because those aren't going to be easy recruitments to win. Christian Jones has like two.
I'm a little nervous about the Jones commitment. I'll be honest.
I am too. Yeah, I mean, anytime you're going to Notre Dame twice, that's
Yeah.
worrisome. And he hasn't been back to Nebraska this spring. That's the other thing that's kind of, and I don't think there's anything, to say like he's not doing it on purpose, but at some point it's like, okay, why aren't you getting him back on campus? Like, is there a reason? I want to see him at some point in the next few weeks. If he's not on campus at some point in the spring, then I'll be a little bit worried.
Well, I think the staff has done a pretty good job of identifying, players. We're going to extend an offer to a player. We're going to see if he wants to come here, how many visits. And then if he doesn't show much interest, we're going to move on to the next guy. They're very good at their timing of moving on to the next guy. And I think that's helped in recruiting as they're more prepared and, they're able to kind of, always have a plan B. And, I think when you take a look at this, June visit list. Yeah, sorry, went off on a football tangent.
It's all right. We'll just switch the. We'll switch the. It probably made more sense to transfer from spring football to recruiting anyway, so we'll just go that part of it.
I think when you take a look at some of these, we had some receiver targets in January who aren't even on the board now, and one who is on the board for the wide receiver group is Corey Sims. I believe he's coming June 16th, if I'm not mistaken. Again, looking at my calendar.
Yep. Yeah, he is the same weekend as Cortez Mills. Just
which
FYI.
is interesting because they're probably. I would love if they land both. They're probably not going to, but I'd be happy with either.
I mean, it'd be pretty legit if they got both, but because Corey Sims. I mean, according to On3 industry rankings, he's 330th. Cortez Mills is 123, which that's way too low. He's way better than that. He's like, I'll tell you this. Cortez Mills to me is like Xavier Worthy. I mean, the Nebraska coaches have said, Devontae Mills, or the guy from Alabama that was really, really good. I think that was his name. No, that's Devontae. What was his name? I cannot remember the last name now. Not the guy who won the high. Anyway,
Devonta Smith.
Yeah.
That's receiver, yeah.
I said Mills because, of course, Torquez Mills is his last name. But at any rate, this kid can absolutely fly. And I don't understand how he's ranked like by anybody outside the top 100. I think he should be a top 50 kid, in my opinion. So
because they don't watch the games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they rank kids without watching games. They watch them in the underwear Olympics. I
had to clear my throat there. Let that one slip out a little bit, but no. But I agree. Like some of these guys are rated way too low, and then I think honestly, just the fact that when you look at the wide receiver room now. A lot of the best programs stack depth. And at some positions, not all positions, but at some positions, Nebraska is really starting to stack tangible depth. And I think that's really important for building the program. And it's not something we've had, let's see. So I've been covering the team 4 years. I've never seen tangible depth being stacked. And I'm sure it's been a long time for you since you've seen that.
Yeah, it's been, yes, really, especially on offense at some of those positions it's been a very, very long time. Also, on the April 27th, the spring game weekend, Emmanuel Choice is going to be here for another 4-star receiver for an official visit. Terry Shelton is going to be here for an official visit. He's unranked, but I mean, 6'4", 200 pounds. So, I'm not sure why he's not ranked, but it is what it is. Michael Terry, 5-star coming in that weekend, according to the 24/7 composite rankings. Elijah Barnes, of course, TJ Lateef. I wanted to talk about, he said Nebraska's still been recruiting him, the hardest out of anybody right now. So they're basically, I mean, Nebraska feels like they're in the lead with TJ Lateef. Yeah. I know Texas and some other schools are coming on though. So, I mean, you can never feel too good in recruiting, especially with the, really good quarterback. Jack Lang was just on campus.
He was.
We've talked about him before, 6'8", 275. He's going to be coming this summer, but Notre Dame's the leader right now. But getting him on campus, he got to see some of the practice. We have the 5-star quarterback, so I mean, I feel like Dylan Raiola is going to be a selling point for these kids too. Just like in NFL free agency, players want to play with a big time quarterback.
And I think this wide receiver group is going to be, a selling point. Maybe not as big as Raiola, but still, when you take a look at some of these receivers and if they develop, properly, I think the wide receiver development is going to be a huge selling point. And, it's going to be really interesting to see how they approach the quarterback recruiting and who they land and if they can continue the string of successful quarterbacks in the program, Raiola, Kalen, and then who's ever next. Because that hasn't, that type of tangible quarterback depth has not happened in quite some time.
So I mean, right now in there, another thing we should talk about too for that June 21st visit date, that Corey Sims is coming to, or excuse me, no, he's coming the week before that. I'm sorry. But we also have Jamarian Parker, who has been committed to Arkansas. I said it before, like this dude's going to, I really didn't think he was going to stick with his commitment to Arkansas. 2 guys decommitted on the same day at a Cardinal Ritter prep. 6 foot, 185, ranked 334 in the On3 rankings. I think he's pretty similar to that in 24/7, but very talented running back. And I feel like Nebraska's in the pole position now. I'm sure some other teams are going to get involved, but I like where they stand with Jamarian Parker, the 4-star running back.
I would definitely watch him closely. I think, they kind of need another running back because, yes, I know there are bodies in the room like Gabe and Ramir, but it all goes back to their health. And, I think that's going to be, something that this coaching staff or, has already considered. And, I think Nebraska has a very good shot at landing Parker. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's see. He's going to officially visit, like you said, on June 21st. And so, it could be shaping up for another big month of June, kind of like last year. Maybe not as many commitments because that was absolutely nuts, right? But, making inroads with these, recruits and, trying to continue to stack and build. And Parker would be a great addition.
Yeah, they're building some momentum. Not like you said, not a ton of commitments right now, but they will start to come. We started to see some last year during spring ball, and then more during that April and June. June, May, July, August. That's when the majority, I would say, of high school, recruits make their decisions. That's just how the process, tends to work. Some are sooner than others, some are later than others, but the majority fall the summer before that season, the senior season. I did want to mention before we move on, a new crystal ball came out in the last week for Bryson Weber, a 6'3", 185-pound quarterback out of Missouri City, Texas, unranked right now. But, we've seen that.
Yeah.
We've said this many times, though. I trust Matt Rule's evaluations over the 24/7 sports guys. So don't worry about that. But strong position, and he's coming for an official visit that same weekend, June 21st. So Jack Lang, Jalen Williams going to be there, Zayden Gentry. So, lots of, Pierce Newberry, Connor Booth, Caden Vermoss. So lots of big guys coming in that weekend. Also Raheem Hutchins, another wide receiver. So in Nebraska, I feel they're doing a good job on the recruiting end of things. They just have to, keep moving the ball forward and starting to close some of those commitments. But you usually have to get a couple of visits before that happens. So I feel very good about the 2025 class right now.
Absolutely. And, they only have 4 commitments, I believe, but they're very solid players. And, I think, again, we talked about this last year. We're already kind of seeing, obviously, the 2024 class, kind of putting a bow on that, maybe another addition here or there, but really pushing aggressively for the 2025 class and not doing it in a way that feels last minute or rushed, and it's nice to kind of be able to fully focus recruiting wise on the 2025 class, knowing that you already have, the 2024 talent here, 2023, obviously, in their second year on the field for many. So, it's kind of good to see there's organization in recruiting, and that's something that the coaching staff has done really well.
They have. Matt Rule is he's nothing if not organized. He's a man with a plan. So, that's been a very good thing for Nebraska. And now to Fred Hoiberg's plan to rebuild this roster, get it back to the NCAA tournament, hopefully win a game in the NCAA tournament for the first time ever. Maybe just, be competitive for an entire game, because I'm tired of watching, every NCAA game I've ever watched with this program. It's over before like halfway through the first half. So at any rate, to get through the pain, talking through the pain. But there has been a lot of, transfer portal movement since we did our show on Monday. Ramil Lloyd Jr., I probably said that wrong. He entered the transfer portal, 6'6" guard, just didn't, get a lot of time. He redshirted last year. Yeah. Eli Rice was kind of the big surprise. He played in 17 games this year, but he averaged 4.2 points per game, hit some nice threes, kind of showed some promise, but didn't play at all in the Big Ten tournament, didn't play in the NCAA tournament. So I feel like he, just is, eyeing maybe a bigger opportunity somewhere else. Fred Hoiberg did say that, he thinks his best basketball is ahead of him. So if there's one surprise or one, move that maybe Nebraska didn't want to happen, it's probably Eli Rice, but you can understand it. And then Blaise Keita, the big guy, yesterday entered the transfer portal. So Nebraska's got four open scholarships right now. What are your thoughts on some of those departures?
You know how much I loved Eli Rice, and people who listen know how much I loved Eli Rice. So that one stings a little bit. I really thought he was extremely athletic and had a lot of potential. I remember, I believe it was the game against Iowa on a Friday back in, was it January or February, if I'm not mistaken, when they went on the road and, played in Iowa, and he showed flashes there. It was January because I remember there was a huge snowstorm. But anyway, and I thought he could, potentially be another offensive threat. But at the same time, if, he sees the writing on the wall and he elects to go somewhere else, it's better to do it now while you're still developing and you have, your full career ahead of you than just sit on the bench and waste your years away. So I'm happy for him that he's going to get another opportunity. I wish he stayed. And then, Blaze, I'm not really too surprised. He was in the program for a little bit, didn't really get a ton of playing time, and Lloyd just never. I know he battled injuries early on, but he was just never able to kind of, assert himself on this roster. And granted, this roster was very talented, especially the last 2 seasons. But, again, it's about making the most of what you have in your career. Because, for a lot of these guys, college basketball is their last stop, and they want to try to maximize their eligibility and things like that. So I'm not mad at all at Lloyd for transferring, and I'm sad that Rice is transferring, and I hope Blaze gets a good opportunity. But now it gives the roster, a chance to add some new talent, and there are a lot of big names in the transfer portal, so this could benefit Nebraska basketball in the long run.
Yeah, and one of those names, I mentioned him last night at HuskerBigRed.com that Nebraska's been in contact with, William Kyle III, a 6'9", 215-pound forward out of Bellevue, Nebraska, played at South Dakota State the last 2 years, was the Summit Defensive Player of the Year last year, averaged 1.6 blocks per game, 13.1 points, and really, if you look at his stat line, he is like a Derek Walker clone, and doesn't have the super high assist rate, 1.7 assists, 6.6 rebounds. But if you look at, hasn't attempted a single 3-point shot in his career, which Derek Walker wasn't a 3-point shooter either. But last season he shot 62%, from the field. So I mean, if you're talking about a guy that can score around the basket, who can, distribute the ball a little bit, who could maybe play in that, high post role that Fred has kind of developed for Rink Mass, first for Derek Walker the previous year, and then just a guy that can, bring a presence on defense. I mean, 1.6 blocks per game. I don't think that's going to translate quite to the Big Ten. I mean, 6'9" in the Summit League is probably different than 6'9" in the Big
Yeah.
Ten, but still, I mean, you don't win Defensive Player of the Year just because of that. And I feel like he would be a nice piece. He could fill in for Josiah Alec that he left. Very similar build, similar interior players. So I feel like that would be a great fit. But he's got like 20 schools have reached out, and there's a lot of high major programs. So it's going to be a tough pull. But Nebraska's done a really good job with in-state transfers the last 2 cycles. Like Sam Griesel, and we saw Josiah last year. So hopefully they can reel in another, because he's probably my top guy right now in terms of the transfer portal targets for Nebraska. I mean, I really would like Terrace Reed too, but I just almost feel like this guy would be a better fit next to Rink Mast.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the key for this roster, who can fit best with what they already have. And I feel like the coaching staff has done a good job of that over the past 2 seasons of figuring things out. But we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see what happens. I think there's going to be a lot of options for the program, and coming off an NCAA tournament appearance, yes, even though it was a loss, I mean, that still means something, and it shows to recruits that this program is headed in the right direction.
Yeah, it really is. There's been some other, targets. Frankie Fiddler, but I saw that he was attending a Creighton practice the other day. And to be honest with him, I feel like, if CJ Wilcher comes back, I don't know what role that he would really have. So that's the way I feel about him. I just don't. He can shoot the ball really well, but I'd rather have a plus defender than just another 3-point shooter. So we'll see. I'm not saying he wouldn't be an addition, but I feel like maybe, because the thing is there's some very important decisions, like Bryce Williams, Juwan Gary, CJ. He walked already, but is he going to come back? I mean, if Nebraska comes back at him with the NIL deal, I mean, would that keep him to stay? I would think so. And then Rink too, because all the thing is like Rink Mass could go. I mean, I'm not saying he can go in the NBA draft, but he could go play somewhere in Europe and make a pretty penny. So Nebraska's, and this will be maybe a good transition to the Troy Dannen presser, because NIL was very prominent in his speech yesterday. He actually said, I will be rocking the 1889 initiative clothing probably more than I will Nebraska stuff. And I thought that was, or 1890. Yeah, sorry, whatever.
No, I just wanted to make it clear before people got mad.
Yeah, sorry, you guys. But at any rate, I forget what it is. But yeah, I mean, and it hasn't been, talked about enough probably within the athletic department. Trev, for whatever reason, was really like anti NIL kind of. So I think that's that's my big takeaway is that
Which is
Troy.
interesting because he kind of, portrayed himself as a person that was very in tune with NIL.
Yeah.
But we know he's a snake oil salesman, so that's not surprising even thinking about it now.
Yeah, it's just a total I guess a 360 or 180 from the previous, mindset of that. And I think that's going to be a good thing, especially, for the football and basketball programs, especially I feel like especially for basketball, because I mean NIL matters for football, but I mean in basketball, like that one or two players that you can land in the transfer portal makes such a difference. And I do think it's going to start changing a little bit because we've had this COVID year, and that's gonna like you
Yeah,
have guys right now that should be playing professional basketball that are like available in the transfer portal,
yeah, yeah,
and that's gonna stop at least to some extent. There's not gonna be you'll still have third year guys transferring somewhere for their fourth year, but you're not going to have the fifth and sixth year all conference all American, you know what I mean? So I think that will put an emphasis more on who's going to recruit well coming out of high school, who can develop those guys. And I feel like Fred Hoiberg is in a nice position for Nebraska to do that.
yeah, for sure. And I feel like when it comes to fundraising efforts, I know Dannen was big on that in his previous stops. Mostly Tulane, but I think having an athletic director that kind of shares, the NIL mindset, that's very open to it, that's very forward thinking, and who wants to raise money is important. And especially when you look at the teams coming in, or the teams already here, technically USC, UCLA, and Washington and Oregon. Those are all big fundraising schools, and Nebraska is going to need to do whatever it takes to keep up. And so just having a leader who's open to that, fundraising and stuff like that is very important.
And I think one thing, that was just really, it's been interesting throughout this whole process, but, we talked about Matt Rule having more sway. And, I don't think that this hire happens without Matt Rule, endorsing it, making it happen, Troy Dannen pretty much said, like, I want to be around winners, and Matt Rule's a winner, and I want to be around that dude, just like a lot of the recruited players. So I really think, Matt Rule was a huge selling point to him. And I just, I don't know. I think this guy's a winner. And frankly, as bad as, we all kind of freaked out about the Trev Alberts thing, like I think Nebraska is in a better spot right now with Troy Dannen than they were with Trev Alberts. So, I mean, that could be right or wrong. We'll see how it works out, but I like where they're at right now.
I agree. I do like where they're at right now. I like that, we have a solid system in place that was put even before, Dannen was thought about or on the scene. And, I feel like the group of coaches, Amy Williams, Matt Rule, Fred Hoiberg, Will Bolt, John Cook, there's solid foundations being built there to where the athletic director doesn't really have to make any tough decisions early on. Alberts was obviously faced with Scott Frost, and what to do, with Scott Frost after 2021, and then, giving him the axe in 2022. So, barring anything catastrophic, there's a foundation in place to where Dannen doesn't have to worry about, a big hire right away. And I think that's important too, because it just shows, stability within the athletic department. And that's something that we haven't had in quite some time.
Yeah, and it's things are in a good spot right now. Hopefully, he can keep it moving forward. So, yeah, I think that's all we have for today, folks. So, thanks for joining us on another episode. We'll be back for one of our live chats on Saturday morning. We'll talk some more spring football and some more transfer portal stuff, I'm sure, a little more recruiting. So make sure you join us then. Please make sure that you hit the like button, enter some comments. If you have any future videos or content you'd like us to talk about or make, definitely put that in the comments section, or just offer up your thoughts on, everything the Nebraska Cornhuskers, everything we talked about today. Hit the subscribe button. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.